Check. Good. So I'm Max Ceron. Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and as always, we are finding the stories that you want to hear across this beautiful nation of ours. Today, I have a wonderful guest who has a very interesting background, which piques the nerd in me so hard because there's so many interesting things I want to ask. We have Alexis Armstrong, who's coming to us from a rare but beautiful sunny day in Vancouver. How are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's so lovely to be here.
No, that's awesome. And I love that you say it's sunny in Vancouver. My parents lived in Richmond for over 20 years. And I remember going to, Vancouver being like, it's going to be so awesome. And then it rained every day. And I was like, wow, that's not as awesome as I pictured it. But when it is sunny, it is beautiful.
No, it is gorgeous. Honestly, like an hour ago, it was torrential rain. So this is a shock to probably everybody in the city. And I'm sure by the time this podcast is done, we're going to go back to it. You know what I mean? Like that is just our winter zone.
Yeah, you're probably in the eye of a hurricane right now. If I see anything drastic happen, like your roof fly off, I promise I'll call 911.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Awesome, Alexis. So let's start with a little bit about, your journey, because, for people on this show, generally it's like right to welding, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
But yours is a much more like industry adjacent path, I would call, to welding, but still very much in the same sphere, which I think, to be honest, and most people that listen to the show will have learned by now, we're over 200 episodes in, is that welding, thank you, that welding is not something you can put in a bucket, right? Mm-hmm. It is connected to any and all branches of science and disciplines out there. For yourself, your current role is with Peggy's Workwear, right? Mm-hmm. So this is workwear for industrial settings. Mm-hmm. You are also, let's see what I got. What else you got? You work with STEM programs, trade programs. Yeah. You're a big advocate for trades and women in the trades. Mm-hmm. But that's not where you started.
No,
not
at all.
Not where you started, right?
Not at all. Like I am so adjacent from welding. Like it is definitely a complete different zone. I will say that I do have like welding in my family and like welding close to my heart, being my little sister who we started Peggy Workwear basically together. And like it truthfully is like a family company. And she's a red seal welder, but I am not a red seal welder at all. I have never held a torch. I'm a geologist is my background. I started in
a sedimentologist.
Sedimentologist. I'm a carbonate sedimentologist if we're getting really, really nerdy about it. But
sedimentary rocks are a much different classification of rocks, also a different timeline on the world scale in terms of the age of the planet, and also the way the what are they called? The big plates, the way they move and weight because of the density and the weight of sand creates different pressure zones within the mantle. And I am a nerd. Like, I mean, I
was like, look at you go. You're a geologist as well. Who's the imposter here? Who's the welder in the room? Yeah. Honestly, it's just two geologists at this point. That's awesome.
That's why when I read that sedimentologist, I immediately, the nerd in me is like, okay, she's one up in this, because most people would just say geologist, right? Because it falls with, it's like a sub discipline of
geology.
Of geology. So I probably did a really poor job of rambling about that, but let's explain to the people listening what a sedimentologist does and what that work would look like.
Yeah, totally. I love that you also called out that it was like a subdomain, because I totally put that in there because I'm a geologist that only likes one type of rock. Like I don't really love a volcanic, don't love a metamorphic. It's not for me. Like I know volcanoes get all the love and joy and like excitement. I think they're very boring. And I think that the most interesting rock is a sand or like a dirt. You know what I mean? That for me is my favorite thing. But I actually started in mining. So I started working in industry and working up north in Northern Canada, Ontario and BC in mining. That was all underground or exploration. Realized the rocks weren't really for me. Again, like I loved the industry, loved working underground, loved being in the woods for the summer, thought that was incredible. But I was like, honestly, my heart is in dirt. Like I am a dirt person, and that is where I need to go. So I studied carbonate sedimentology, which is the study of ancient reef systems. So reefs, as you know, is like going snorkeling and any tropical environment. I look at ancient ones, and I kind of look at those and try to understand the paleo environment of that time. So I looked at, my main focus was looking at rocks around 600 million years ago and then trying to understand that setting. So like, what did that look like in terms of water depth, water chemistry? What did that look like in terms of heat? Who was swimming about in this little sea, and what was going on in the middle of Canada when it was completely at equator and
Well, I'm in Saskatchewan.
underwater.
So I,
Yes.
I live in that. I live in this world
Yes,
of
you do.
sedimentology. This is why we have potash. This is why we have the elements that we have here, and why in Saskatchewan, if people don't know this, I can go out to any creek and find fossils now. Like there's literally fossils everywhere in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like it's across the entire prairies, and like that's really what I studied. But that was from like an academic point of view. But from a work perspective, what I did with that like academic study is I went and I worked for the US government, and I worked for a program called IODP. It has so many acronyms because science, I don't know if Weldon's like this, but we are obsessed with acronyms. But it's the International Ocean Discovery Program. It's been named a million different things throughout history. It was actually started in the 1950s, late 1950s, 60s. By the CIA, which is a crazy story in its own, but it's like
we need to know about those pesky oceans.
Honestly, no, you know what they needed to know is they needed to bring up a Russian sub that sank. So they built this like incredible 1 deep sea drilling vessel that had a hole called the moon pool. That could drill down into the ocean sea floor and actually do scientific exploration. But they did two. They did one as like a fake scientist boat and one for the CIA to get the sub. But then what they found out was like, hey, there's actually really good science down here. And there's actually a lot to discover. And so like that was like the birth of the program back in the like late 50s, early 60s. And then it's just continued ever since. It's an international research program. It goes all around the world. You live on basically like a deep sea drill rig. So you live on a drill rig. And I did that for like 5-6 years of doing 2-month expeditions at sea. Our bread and butter is climate change, but we also look at trying to understand,
future trends, things that are coming.
Future trends. A lot of it is honestly like helping people to try to understand, to be like, what are hurricanes going to look like if we get a little bit hotter? If that current changes, what's that going to be in terms of like impact to people? So that's
glacier
a huge part of our job.
Desalinization of the waters, affect everything.
Everything. It's all public data, and it's just for like the mankind, really. Anyone can go in and they can look at our data and they could be like, what did you guys do?
Those are the kind of things I read at, for 3 a.m. for some reason.
It's honestly, it's a good 3 a.m. Like it's a good like YouTube kind of Reddit energy of just like going down and deep diving and looking at photos of rocks that were from the bottom of the seafloor. I can give you a bunch of links to look at that because it is really, really cool. But that's my background. So it's completely different from welding. Me and Andrea, we always kind of lived a little bit like bookends, because I went the maritime industry of living on a deep sea drill rig, and she went to like welding deep sea drill rigs and creating the boat. So we were both in the maritime industry.
But you're
at the same
still in
time.
the same part of the library, right?
Totally. Like it's just like very different, but we'd have the same experiences of being like, hey, what do you find like living at port? What do you find that looks like? Or like working in this environment? And one was like an active ship and one was building a ship. But anyways, that's my background. That's kind of
so there's so much there. Like, I mean, that's like a week of fun talks over beers. I not always. I mean, I listen to weird things, and I'm a avid reader. But I remember reading years ago that the reefs of the world are like the lungs of the ocean, because they support like a kind of their own biome. They have a life of their own where they, produce other living beings throughout their biome structure, but are alive themselves. But because they are so carbon dense as living structures, that their skeletal remains, as they are actually like almost like pre-fossilized before they even die. So like,
That's 100%. Yeah, that's correct.
am I on the right track here?
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
So
like 1,000%.
right. So they're able to basically give you a very accurate read of their environment, based off, their age, or even their location, their depth, or whatever. Now,
Yeah.
I'd imagine that is both incredibly interesting, but also scary, because you're going to be getting probably some information that you're like, oh, that's not good, right? Like,
It is like the only thing that I would add to the carbonate thing, or to the like reef forming bugs, basically,
yeah,
of like
yeah.
the organisms of what they are. So we have a little like catchy phrase that they're the only rocks that are born, not made. And you're 100% right that they secrete their own skeleton. They're constantly growing, and they're kind of, it's a fancy word for like, as they're solidifying and changing, while they're living, is diagenesis, or like,
Yeah.
it's basically just changing as they're living, as they're dying, but it's secreting carbon. And what we can do, and how we do most of our research, is we really look at the low magnesium calcite is kind of what we go to. And within that calcite, you don't really need to know all these crazy big words, but we're looking at oxygen and carbon and the isotopes of that. So
That's exactly welding.
yeah.
I mean, when you
yeah,
get
it's true,
when you
actually.
get to
Yeah.
metallurgy, you are going
Yes,
to
it's true.
magnetite, you're going to all these same things, and they're all just combinations of oxygen within lattice structures, and because all crystals will revert back to an original lattice structure,
Yes,
unless
1000%.
something deforms it,
Yeah.
or is an alloy, or what's the other word, a bad thing,
Something that gets added in.
yeah,
Something that's like,
not
that's
natural
not
to it.
supposed to
Yeah,
be within
yeah,
that structure. Yeah. So that's exactly it. So we look at like, there's 3 different types of carbonate. There's aragonite, high mag calcite, and calcite. Both, think of aragonite and high mag calcite, that they have the bad stuff within their,
Okay.
they have
Bad mix.
alloys within them.
Yeah.
They're not stable, right? So
Yeah, not
those are
stable.
going to be constantly changing. But if we can look at low mag calcite, what we can do is we can look at the isotopes of oxygen and carbon, and then we can, from that gives you temperature and productivity. And so those are 2 huge things of trying to understand environment. That
Wow.
instantly tells you how healthy a water body is, but also tells you temperature, kind of gives you a better idea of where you are in terms of paleo environment. But then from your point of being like, we're doing this crazy research, it's so cool. It's like 27 countries are working together on one project. It's kind of like the International Space Station, but at sea. It's a fantastic, beautiful thing. But then at the same time, we're taking samples, and we're finding like microplastics in Antarctica and like Antarctic bottom water, to be like, this is the slowest recharge current. There should be nothing in here. There should be no human signature. And the fact that there is already microplastics here is terrifying. So that there is like definitely
there's always that sharp edge of science where you're like, oh, this is cool, but oh no.
Yeah, to be like, the data is telling us that we are in some troubled waters, literally.
Literally, yeah. And it's interesting because in the realm of metallurgy and science, there is also a paleo analysis of metals through their oxide excretion, right? So stainless steel, which is considered to be, non-oxidizing, is actually, and that's not true. Stainless steel does oxidize, but it oxidizes in layers of protection. So it actually, the older stainless gets, the more oxygen resistant it gets, and you can measure that depth of resistance to know how old a piece of stainless is. Stainless is still new enough in our society that now it's like all within a couple hundred years, so it doesn't really matter. But at some point, 1,000,000 years from now, someone will be able to date our structures right now in society using stainless steel very accurately. It'll be one of the things that someone's going to stumble across and be like, this material gives us dating very well and very consistently, right? So I like we said to start the show, the overlaps are always there in the metals world and in the world you're doing.
Completely. No, completely agree. And like, it is just, me and Andrea, we've obviously talked about this a lot. And we talk about this in our family a lot, because our family, I'll back up a little bit. So our family is like a union based family. We are a blue collar family. Like, our parents were the only people in their family to get an education. They were the first to get higher education. But maybe some of the other people that we've grown up with, or like family friends, or who knows, would maybe look down on Andrea's career as a welder sometimes, and like not close family friends, but there is a stigma.
There is a stigma.
Again, there is a definite stigma, and you'd be lying to say that it doesn't exist in terms of how people look at Andrea and the decision that she made to become a welder. And in our family, one, we come from like a blue collar background and come from a trades background, but we always have viewed, and our parents have always kind of viewed trades and science as one of the same. Andrea's just more hands-on with it, but she's still a scientist. She's still like a metallurgist, really, at the heart of hearts in terms of welding. But she's just lighting things on fire, whereas we're looking at it underneath the microscope. But it's basically
the same
thing. We're very, very similar.
Yeah,
so we've
like
always had
using a mass spectrometer is still lighting it on fire. Just a real fancy fire, like
a very small, tiny little microfire. Yeah, but like it's the same idea. It's the same like principles, same concepts, and I do think that there's kind of this overlap between science and trades. I always have, but that was also taught to us. Like we were lucky enough to be
and that's a very key thing that you bring up because like I look at my career. I went to university first. I had visions of being an academic. And it was put on me at a young age, like, oh, I'm good at school. You're going to be an academic. You run with it. But my family's blue collar, you know. But they were like, you get to escape the blue collar life by becoming an academic. Then I had a kid in university. Well, that throws everything out the window. I need money. So I started welding because my dad was a welder. So I had that introduction into it. In all my career of welding, there was always still this sort of little cloud that followed me of I didn't reach my potential. This kind of idea where like you could have been more if you would have stayed academic, and I will never reach potential. My kids are fed, they're in good schools, I got a house, my life is great, everything's great, but there's still this cloud that I felt followed me around until I became a college professor. And it wasn't until I finally returned to academia now as an instructor that it was like, oh, okay, now you've done something. And I really took offense to that. I'm like, these last 20 years of my life that I've been building my career and doing all this stuff and night classes and training and all this stuff and supporting my family, all of that was just meh. It's just mid because it's blue collar.
No,
that needs to go in the garbage.
That needs to go. Yeah,
right. That needs to go.
Yeah, and I think like with us, like our parents, obviously, they always wanted us to do a higher education, but they always would have a caveat with higher education of what does that mean. And trade school and university was always on the same level, and it was always presented as being like that is higher education. Like you have to go past high school and you have to do something, whether it's university or it's trade school, that's fine. But
and they're on the level,
they're on the same level. And I think too with my dad, he was the first in again, both of my parents, but on my dad's side, he would go to university, but then he would go up north to like far, far, far north and build construction platforms up in the Beaufort. And so for him, he also always knew to be like, guys, at 19, go into industry. Like that is the quickest way for financial independence. He has all daughters. He
100%.
Was like, financial independence for women is so important, and especially from a young age because you have so much agency. So he was a big component of being like, doesn't matter where you do, even if you've decided to go to university, you're going into industry. Like as soon as you hit 19, you're going up north because you can make a lot of money and you can support yourself at a very young age.
And you build some skills that will help your academic career.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah. Which is why I started in mining so young. And it's also why Andrea started in mills so young as well. We had the same kind of trajectory.
So my background is in mining here in Saskatchewan. I came up in mining.
Potash.
I worked in potash, and I worked for years, first for the steel mill, then the potash, and then for potash adjacent, so building machinery and equipment for potash mining. And it really was the crux of my career because there's no real way to do mining without kind of learning metallurgy as well. You do kind of have to pick up that piece of it in order to be safe and to know what's going on in the mining world. I saw on your like your CV that you sent in sort of like, that you were in the mining industry and you worked in mining. I don't know if a lot of people outside of the mining industry realize how science heavy mining is. If you work in a production shop or a fab shop, you really like, aside from the math and the algebra, the trig side of it, you're not really expected to know much about anything else outside of what you're building. But when you work on sites, mining sites, and whether you're underground or a solution mine or open pit, there is so much training that goes in prior, during, and post to make sure that you're safe and doing a good job, because these environments are wild, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many sciences involved. Like, I remember waiting for the geologists to finish their test, because you got so far, and then you got to wait. They come in, they take their samples, they do their stuff. Then you got to wait for the engineers to come in and check the structures and the supports. And there's all these levels of science happening around you that are so interesting. Now, for you, in your coming up through the mining industry, what was the roles that you had in the mining industry, either before you started your academia or during?
So I love that you brought that up of like kind of what mining is like, because I do think it is such a world of itself. And that if you've never been underground, it's really hard to like conceptualize that, to be like, what does that mean? And I love that you brought in that there's so much science on every single task. Because for me, it was the opposite. There was so much trade to every single task. And that was the first time at being 19 of working with like guys that are also being paid by the clock, and like being like the scoop operator and like all the guys in the fab shop to be like, hurry up with that sample, like tape that damn wall and tell us where to go.
And
like,
what do they always say under the mine? Like, those guys are always like, every 15 minutes is $1 million, like stuff like that, right? Like,
but it was fantastic training of like understanding production and really understanding of like working of a crew and working in terms of how people get paid and what are they motivated by. I thought that was just a part of industry that was really cool to learn really early, and to like work as a crew to try to make sure that everybody gets the best for them at that, gets paid, and like gets also paid safely, and that we do this all together and that we're really efficient. But I also loved learning about every single operator, what they were doing. Like, that guy's doing the blast. These guys are the drillers, but they're diamond drillers that are different than this type of drilling. Scoop operator is very different than a truck driver. This is like all the different heavy machinery in itself of just like all the operators is incredible to see. So that was a really wonderful thing that I've always taken from mining. And that's always something that I really loved, that I kind of miss the heavy industry.
Yeah, I do
and
as well.
like I miss that smell of like coming down in the cage and everyone's like in their coveralls, and yet like there's just something about it that's really cool. But I left the mining industry fairly junior. So my background, even though I started in it, it was really truthfully in undergrad and right afterwards. And then I switched to academia and to research. But I started as a 3D modeler, was like my first job ever.
Okay, scanning,
Yeah. And like creating all of the levels and stopes and everything, and actually creating it in AutoCAD and being like, what does the mine look like rendered? That was my very first job, was 3D modeling. And then I worked up in like exploration and really like low scale exploration. A mine is not even on the plan yet. We don't even know if there's enough. We're like 30 years past before there's going to be a mine. So I worked on that side. That's mostly prospecting and soil sampling, really, and doing kind of grids and some geophysics work and some helicopter work. But that's, again, really like
really
woods.
At the top edge of it.
Yeah, top edge. And then what I loved the most about it was going in production. I was a production gal at my heart of hearts. Like, I was just enamored that everything could kill you and that it was just such a wild environment. But in some weird way, it was so peaceful because it was like too much chaos going on that I found it very calming.
Just focus on your little piece and let the chaos reign.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And that, at that point, again, I was still a junior geo. So I was always helping.
Geo. Oh, I love that term.
Yeah, senior geo. But I was helping my senior geo, right? Like I was basically just like in a truck and helping map out where we're going in terms of like development of the mine. So where do they have to drill in? Where's the ore going? What is the grade of the ore? What formation are we in? And kind of mapping out underground. So a lot of it is mapping ore grading and kind of understanding where we're moving in terms of that. And then with that, all of the guys can do their mine planning and do all of their operations. But the best part about that, what I loved, is the mine that I was working at, in order to make it efficient and also to like decrease safety risk, instead of going up to a face to do our tagging to be like, yeah, this has 20% gold, please go that direction. They gave us a paintball gun. And so we'd sit on our Toyota with a paintball gun and just
Yeah.
like shoot it to be like, yeah, go that way. And that was like all my day was getting paid to like drive around and shoot at walls with a paintball gun. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, gold mines are notorious for being some of the most dangerous mines to work at. So that was a learning experience for me because I worked in potash, which is fairly safe. It's saline, pretty much brine. And then I went to Africa, West Africa, to work at the world's largest gold mine, Newmont mine in Ghana. It's the largest gold mine in the world, and also the most unsafe mine in the world. It was something like 200 fatalities a year or something like that. It was unreal.
Holy.
I went down there on a world project to help build a training center to increase safety because just like Africa went through the blood diamond era, they started going through the blood gold era where people were not buying gold from unsafe mines anymore. So this mine being owned by a Canadian company, Newmont, they decided to, like, we're going to fix this. We're going to try to fix this. And I was a part of a 2-year program there to build these training centers. And it's when I realized, like, I mean, I thought I was pretty cool because I worked in potash mines and I've been to a couple of uranium mines, but gold mines are a whole nother headspace. I was like, man, these things, I mean, there's like the byproducts of what you're digging up are dangerous. You got like mercuries, you got like all these
cyanide, like leaching in a lot of like arsenic,
and it's funny because you go after potash, you're chasing salt. There's really not too much, right? You're just chasing salt, and if you find the radioactive salt, hooray, you got the good one. But the gold was another game altogether, a whole other aspect of industry I had to wrap my head around, right?
Wow, I could only imagine that experience. Like, I've only ever experienced mining in Canada. I've never done it in a different country.
Even just driving up to the mine, I was like, oh boy, I've never seen something this big before. Like, this would fit 10 of our mines. Like, what the heck?
That's insane. Yeah, the scale alone, but like also the safety and like the culture of like being underground, I couldn't imagine. Like, underground is dangerous enough, mining is dangerous enough, but like to have that many fatalities a year,
yeah, and it was like normal. It was like, oh yeah, well,
yeah,
you know, you live with the mine.
Like nothing.
Yeah, you know, that's part of the job. It's like, no, it isn't, guys. No,
absolutely not. No. It was like, that was one thing that I always will be really, really thankful for is I got paired up with a fantastic geologist that was from Newfoundland. And he was so safety conscious. Like he was the most safety conscious, and he would not risk to shut down production if things were happening like off the book. And I thought that was like very, very brave of him.
That's the right example to set. Yeah,
exactly. So like I was always felt very, very comfortable working underground, but it was because I was with good people that was like, that's not bolted. We're not even going to step foot in there. Like we're not getting there for 3 more days because you have to bolt that. Like get out of here.
Get at it.
Yeah. So like that was just very lovely being like a young woman in mining and in that space to have somebody like that to work with was really good.
So these skills that you're picking up, mines, working with your senior geo, because you're a junior geo, I got to use that term, you know, and you're picking up these skills, then they send you out on a boat.
Yeah.
How much of these skills transfer directly to the work you're doing underwater?
So, not as many in terms of like, that's a hard question. It's a good question. So the science doesn't change. The geology is still geology. Like the theory is the same. What changes is how maybe the mentality of it is a big change of like, we're not doing it for economic reasons. We're not here to mine. We're not here to explore. And we're not really caring about what our assay is coming back or how much our ore is graded at. Like we're really just there for science and trying to understand paleo environment or trying to understand what is happening in this setting. And because we're part of an organization that had been around for so long, it unfortunately just ended last year. The funding was just revoked, which is a very, very sad day. But because it had been running for so long, a lot of it was really cut and paste, because the part about research is you have to do the same measurement over and over and over again to be able to look at the data and actually have like an accurate understanding of what's happening. If you have too much error in data, you're like,
it's not
why
data.
are we even why are we even looking at this? Like there's like nothing here to compare. So that was a new mindset of being like, we're not doing this for economic. We're really doing this for research, and we're doing this for a global record keeper of climate. And so we have to be precise and perfect on this data. So that means that it almost turns more into an engineering and like lab tech role a little bit of being like, is my instrument correct?
Yeah,
and
I was
we
about
doing
to
this
bring up
measurement right?
metrology. Yeah.
Yeah, like it really comes down to methodology. Like that was a big
Yeah.
change, right? So it becomes less theoretical and less mapping, and then all of a sudden is engineering. And the thing with the boat that I will say was a shock when I first got on my first my first expedition ever. I remember my instrument broke, and I went up to my boss and I was like, it's broken. And she was like, cool. I was like, yeah, Che, like it's gone. And she was like, what the are you going to do about it? And I was like, sorry, what? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not an
Get me
engineer.
a new one.
Yeah, like I'm a geologist. And she was like, absolutely not. You're an engineer now. Like, you're
Yeah.
responsible for this task. Like, learn. And I was like, well,
we're
like,
a kilometer underwater. We're not stopping at Home Hardware. Like,
completely. Like, that was
Yeah.
exactly her point. And she was like, well, like, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. And she was like, read a fucking book. See you later. Come grab me if you need me. But like, this is really your task. And so that was something that was really cool of being like, all of a sudden, all the responsibilities on you. When something breaks, you need to fix it. It's really much like Band-Aids and like WD-40 to be like, how is this working? But from somebody from a science background, I also had to learn, I'm not going to say that I'm like good at any skilled trade, especially not on this show, but I had to learn enough to be like,
enough
can
to be
you
dangerous.
fix your machine? Yeah, exactly. Can you like not get hurt? And can you like fix what you need to fix and go from there? So that was a big change, was really like, you are on your own. You are doing every single task. You are learning every single task. If you've never used this tool or this instrument, you're going to learn now. Welcome to the ship.
Well, I love that. In a conversation I had a few weeks ago with some colleagues, we started talking about percentages. It's kind of weird. You try to, I guess, quantify sometimes things that are hard to quantify. And we were talking about ambition. And like, you can train a lot of things, you can teach a lot of things, you can mentor a lot of things, but ambition is one of the things that kind of you got it or you don't. And we say that quite a bit. I'm sure you've even thought these things, but then it's like, well, what's ambition then? On a scale of 1 to 10, like what are you looking for? And we were like, well, that top 10% you're never going to find. And you know what I mean? And starting to look at that. And one of the aspects that one of my friends brought up was the walk away ratio. Like when you come to an obstacle and then your ambition to not just, because there's ambition to like, I want this project to succeed, but then the ambition when things go bad. So this now, your tool broke. Where's your ambition now? That changes things because I want the project to succeed, but right now, this thing is broken. Where's your ambition to overcome this hurdle? And you had to kind of go to somebody outside of you to be like, no, this is you. This isn't a derail. This is you are now learning a new thing. Welcome to being ambitious, right? And and that's a hard thing to quantify. And I wish you could find a way to train it. You know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting. You really learn a lot about somebody when things go wrong, right?
Oh, completely. No, I love this. I love this theme, and I love this kind of conversation that you had. I think it's so interesting, and I definitely agree with it. I think either you have it or you don't, but I do think it's also like you can learn it.
Yeah.
Like I definitely learned it, and I think my original was like very rule bound to be like, this is my job and this is my role and this is my expertise. But what I was loved is that I had a mentor that was like really pushed me to that. But I also think I learned it only because I had to. I think I was in such an extreme environment that you were totally like lost at sea if you didn't do it. And I don't know, that would be really hard to then come back from. Come back to the real world and like try to implement that and try to teach that same thing. Cause I think a lot of people do need like black or white binary situation where you're like, I got to do it or else it just won't happen.
Won't. Yeah,
exactly. Like there's really no option here. But that would be hard to replicate somewhere else, I think. I don't know. I was very lucky that it was an extreme environment.
And how long did you do that for? Like until
I
just now, until like recently?
Yeah,
Yeah.
until like very recently. So like again, it would be like 2 months on, 2 months off. And so it was just a long time at sea. I think when I did the math, like cumulatively, however you say that word, I think I was at sea, like in the water for like 3.5 years or something like
Mhm.
that. Back to back would be
So
my
you got
life
good sea
sailing at
legs.
sea.
You don't get seasick no more, or did you ever? Some people are bad with it. Some people are not.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we had some scientists and like some techs that would be sick for like 20 years. And I was like, I would have quit this job 20 years ago if that was me. Luckily, I was okay. But we did go through like crazy weather. We had
Yeah.
some we are not a fast boat. We're also drilling like
Yeah.
into the sea floor. Because of that, we're usually in like 3,000 meter water depth. And that is a lot of pipe to trip. So you like trip
Yeah.
pipe down. It just means that we're really slow. So when a storm happens, we're usually not able to move.
You're
And so,
sitting. Yeah.
yeah, usually we just have to brace and we have to like maybe bring like out of the hole
Yeah.
if we have enough warning. But like even then,
You're
we are
just tethered.
sitting and we are tethered.
Yeah.
So we did have some crazy, crazy weather. And there was a couple like hurricanes are always less out at sea, but there
For
was like
sure. Yeah.
huge storms that we went through that was pretty like
Yeah,
gnarly.
most of the
And
bad
those, yeah.
weather you experience is because of the elevation change actually underwater. So if you're in deep enough water, it's less. But then the waves, although
Waves are
deep,
crazy.
but the
Yeah.
waves are crazy because then you get, well, I guess when you're out at sea at that depth, that they're not waves anymore; it's the swells, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's the whole swell, like the whole, like 30 kilometers around you is going up 10. Like,
It's insane. Yeah, like so hurricanes are so temperature dependent and they kind
hmm
of need like land in order
hmm
to like really wreak havoc. They love a good continent, but
hmm
they're still pretty like crazy gnarly storms in terms of wind and swell. And
yeah,
we would just be like there's a couple ones that we'd be like sitting at the galley and then all of a sudden one person you would just hear oh because they'd like see nothing but blue.
yeah, and you're
And
like,
then it was
oh,
just like food and cups and the like everything was just whoosh, like
yeah,
everyone to one side of the ship. Like it was
ouch.
just
Broken arms, broken hands, anything like that ever happen? No.
there was some medical stuff. Luckily we were okay. On that
Mm-hmm.
one, we were really lucky because no one got hurt in the kitchen. Like that's
So I've
where
seen videos of people like
yeah.
literally off their feet flying through the air, like
Yeah. It's like it can be pretty gnarly. Like we've had
yeah,
a couple the drill floor in the kitchen, whenever there's big swells, that's like the like very, very dangerous point.
yeah,
Everywhere is
yeah.
dangerous, but those are like the two that you're actively drilling and you're actively like with boiling water. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden the ship is
Upside
changed.
down.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like please be okay. Like you're like with knives and boiling water. And then one
Yeah.
other is just with like rotating, moving equipment that is like bigger than their head that
Yeah.
you're like, also please be okay.
I
Yeah.
love it. All right, we got to take a break for
Yeah.
our
Okay.
advertisers because we're having way too much fun here. So we'll be back right away here on the CWB Association podcast with Alexis Armstrong, who's telling us amazing stories. We're loving this. All right, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back on the CWB Association podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. I am here with Alexis Armstrong coming to us from Vancouver. We have been talking about her journey as an academic through very tactile-based industries, mining, ocean-based research. These are the type of jobs where, very much science and practical skills go hand in hand. There's really not one without the other. How, when you're looking at kind of on sea versus on land skills development, do you see much difference, or are they kind of the same peoples? Because you're going to have engineers and construction people and millwrights on a ship. You're going to have the mechanics. You're going to, kind of all the same job roles are around, but does everyone look like the typical French sailor on a boat? Like, I don't know. Like, I just
No, it's a good question. I'm just like, I'm picturing what sailors actually look like. I think there is a difference. I think
Yeah.
anyone who works at sea is just like land but crazy. Like literally the crazy. I think you have to be a little bit like
Yeah,
off
absolutely.
your rocker to be like, I'm gonna be comfortable staring at nothing but blue and living on a boat with 120 people, only
Yeah, yeah,
120 people for like 80 days or something
yeah. But
ridiculous.
the
Like it's
skies, the
just
skies at night out in the middle of the ocean,
Mhm.
the way the moon looks, like you can literally
Yeah.
just touch it. Like you don't get that on land.
No, and like it's a very romantic, like it is a very cool
Hmm.
um experience, and I'm really happy that I did it. Like I no regrets at all. I was also able like with work to travel all around the world. And like
Right.
that was so lucky. Like in what
Hmm.
opportunity and like what world does that get given to you to be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, do you want to go to Guam?" And you're like, "I don't even know where Guam is, but
But I'm
like
in.
why not?" Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I bet
Sure.
the food
Like
is great.
like it was, yeah, it was actually. It was like kind
Yeah.
of like Hawaiian. But it was like that experience was really cool. But I do think that there's a difference in terms of people. I think sailors are absolutely crazy. I think they are just like yeah, think of your like grizzled old, maybe
Hmm.
not French, but like an old grizzled man with a lot of wrinkles at like 28, and that is your like
The salt
sailor.
burn skin. Yeah,
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 like the leather skin
yeah.
and the like smoking a cigarette while they're like doing something that is
I love
working at
it. I
sea.
love it. That is a
Yeah.
very romanticized notion, and I'm glad it's true.
Yeah.
So, how did this start opening your eyes, your career
Hmm.
to your current endeavors? Because, there's a few things here. Number one, you've devoted a lot of time to advocate for women in the industries.
Hmm.
You know, is that something that came up through your time working in industries? Is this something you felt you want to do perhaps even pre-industry, as a young woman? Where did that advocacy part come in? And how does it affect your life?
Yeah, no, thank you. This is a very wonderful question. I think honestly, it's something that I was trying to figure out like where this came from, but I
Hmm.
think it just grew um as I started working in geology and then also started working in industry or industrial settings. Like
Hmm.
I think just being even at like a university, when I graduated, we didn't have a big grad class. I went to school in Nova Scotia. So it's a small little school
Hmm.
anyways. But I think I was like one of two in women within my like grad class
Of the
when we
geologist
ended
sect,
of
yeah.
the geologists, right? Like there was really not many women. There was only one professor who is like an icon and a legend, Dr. Sandra Barb. But like other than that, there was really no one that we could see to be like, this is a woman in
Hmm.
geology. Like it was just always apparent to be like, you're
Is
going to be
geology male?
very, very, very male dominated. It's a lot of
Yeah.
people go into geology after forestry. So it has a very
Okay.
similar energy
Okay.
to forestry,
Yeah.
honestly. They're very similar in terms of student. But I think that is kind of where it came from. And then it just built. Like it was just something of being
Hmm.
like continuously being, I'm like one of the only women here. Um, I'm talking to my like bosses, if I'm lucky enough to have a woman boss, which I have been, to like my colleagues, maybe the other two women on site, like we're instantly bonding on the fact that
Hmm.
like this experience and this industry, this environment was really not designed for us and is very obviously not designed for
Hmm.
us. And like
Hmm.
everyone else in the setting, even though I met some wonderful men that were like fantastic and advocates for like for women in non-traditional roles, they still were like, yeah, okay, like it's just you and like Kathy. Like, are you
Hmm.
guys okay? Like, do you guys
Yeah.
have clothes?
Yeah.
Like, are you like they were like taking care of us, but it was always very much like a
An extra.
noticeable,
Yeah. Yeah.
noticeable that we were like really on our own. And at the same time, like going back to my sister who's a red seal welder, again, me and Andrea are bookends. Like I was going through this experience in STEM and in mining. She was going through the same experience in trades. And we were really having, even though we were at different sides of the country, we were having the same kind of culture issues and problems.
Hmm.
We were also having this like one thing that I think really changed it. We were having these conversations with people outside of the industry. And I think um what was common from people who were maybe outside of it who didn't understand it, a lot of times when they would come up and ask me and Andrea about our jobs, it was in a negative way. They'd be like,
Oh, like,
how
how did you fall into that?
yeah, like how difficult is it to be a welder? Like
Mm.
how hard is it to be a geologist? And this is heavy too, but they'd be like, have you been harassed? Have you been
Mhm.
assaulted? Have you been endangered? Like, and all of those culture problems exist because we are few and far in between within these environments. Those exist. I'm not saying that they don't, and I'm not saying that that's not a problem that we have to solve, but it was a very odd framing that was the
That's
only
top of mind.
framing.
That's top of mind. Not, are you a
Yeah.
successful geologist, or have
Or do you like
discussed?
it?
Yeah, like kind of the normal questions would come up in conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing really about like our identity. It felt very
Mhm.
much like the questions about us in that space wasn't our own. It wasn't our own storytelling. It wasn't our own experience. We didn't
Narrative.
get,
Yeah.
we didn't really have control of that to be able to be like, yes, there's all these cultural problems that we are actively within the community trying to change. But I'm also working with this bad named Che, who's been on this boat since the 90s, who's like from Taiwan. She's incredible. I'm obsessed with her. She's taught me all these things. Like,
Mhm.
I love this type of carbonate rock. Like, no one's talking to Andrea to be like, I learned this, like, this thing for welding, and I'm really excited about like all the welds that I did yesterday. There's no joy and there's no like technical ability in terms of the questions that we were getting. And so I
Yeah.
think that coupled with the known cultural problems really focused us to be like, okay, let's do something here.
Mhm.
Let's kind of maybe broadcast this a little bit. Let's start with storytelling. Let's go there
Mhm.
first to be like, let's talk to women in the community. And let's try to create a platform where everybody can tell their stories and talk about like the joys of their job. And again, let's kind of break this down. We were lucky enough with our parents that they put STEM and trades on the same pedestal. That doesn't happen often. Let's put that onto a platform. Let's
Yeah.
really talk about trades as we should talk about them, that they are scientists, and or engineers, like let's put
Mhm.
them at that level because that's where they deserve to be. And let's equalize that conversation. And again, talk to everybody in different industries and really focus on who are they? What do they love about their job? What are they excited about their job or their industry? And then if they do want to go there, to be like, is there problems with your jobs that you would like to talk about? And like, let's create a safe space for women to talk about that. Let's go there, but only
Mhm.
if you would like to. And I think like that's the problems of culture. I think it's really important if it comes from the community. And I think that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to take back that
Yeah.
narrative and expand that narrative as well, and expand that platform to be like, who's in these conversations and what industries are we actually talking about? So we're not just talking to welders. We're also going to talk to iron workers, to carpenters, to foresters, to
Mhm.
Climate scientists, to
To
chemists.
whoever
Like,
wants
let's
to.
talk to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
it feels very unauthentic. Is that a word? Inauthentic?
Inauthentic. Yeah.
Yeah. When you hear the preach coming from above down,
Mhm.
right? When it's not organic, when it's not community based, and you hear like, like the CEO of some company come out and be like, "We're going to be more diverse," and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, immediately everyone's like, what do you mean?" And like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an immigrant, I'm a person of color. For me, it's like, oh, well, you're gonna hire a couple more brown guys tomorrow, yay. And women probably have the same thoughts, like
Yeah.
what token move is gonna happen. At the end of the day, if you don't have the storytelling, and this is so much like, when you look at indigenous cultures and how they maintain their histories, their oral histories, they really had something figured out there that if you can't tell the story and repeat it to another person, you didn't get the story.
Yeah.
You didn't get it. You can say a lot of words, but you didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
So if you want things to catch and you want people to get it, they got to be authentic. They got to be
Yeah.
real. They got to matter. And that means joy. That means sorrow. That means up. That
Yeah.
means down, right? Like, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
just like, oh, my job sucks because of X, but it's also like, I love this part of my job because of Y. You know what I mean? And trying to hit those things.
No, I couldn't agree more with that. And I love that example because it's nuance. And I think that's what's missing in terms of like, I think even like CEOs or from top down, I don't think anyone's coming with malicious. Everyone's coming
Mhm.
with like trying to make it better, but maybe failing to understand what does that actually mean in terms of the environment, because these are niche spaces. Like,
Mhm.
again, it's hard to picture what a mine looks like unless you've been in one, to be like, okay, what are the problems associated within that niche environment? And I think given nuance to stories, and I think having no expectation that there's going to be like a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, and then letting a story evolve. And really my job, or like how I view our job of like the Smoko podcast and even Peggy Workwear, is we're honestly just a platform for others. Like we are here for you, that you can come on our show and you can be yourself. Like it is really, we're not trying to brand you. We're not trying to put you in terms of a certain idea. We're even not really talking that much throughout the episode. Like this is just for you to tell your story however you'd like to tell it.
We're not trying to
Like,
get you on the next $5 bill and change the world. I mean, if it happens, awesome, but
incredible.
yeah.
But like that's the mission, is really just authenticity.
Well, let's talk about that. You segued yourself perfectly. Well done. So the Smoko podcast, how long has it been running? This is your baby, or tell us about the inception and plan here.
I mean, the inception, I think, was like already like that spiel of being like, okay, where are we going to do for advocacy? That is the inception. Like that was really like, okay, let's do something to change culture. This is how we can do it. I think this is the most important part. I honestly, I'm a bad historian. I have no idea when I started it. I think maybe like a year and a bit ago. Like it just has been.
You make
kind of
history sound. When you said you're a bad historian, I'm like, she's gonna say 30 years. A year and a half. Come on.
I think it's like a year and a half. Like but it's been such a whirlwind. I honestly, when I started it, I like not started it as a joke, but like I didn't expect it to like people to say yes. You know what I mean? So I emailed so many people to be like, hey, do you want to come on this crazy weird show? And I got everybody said yes. And I was like, okay. Okay. And like there's supposed to be what, like episode a week, I think gives you like 42 episodes or something like that. I think like roughly.
Yeah, I aim for 50 a year. Yeah.
Yeah. We did 74 in our first season.
Holy,
it was too many.
That's
it was
a lot.
like, it was too many, but it was one of those ones that I couldn't say no.
Well, you're going to catch up to me in no time, man. Like,
it was just, I've toned it back for season 2. Cause I'm like, it was too many to do, but like what a beautiful thing that like we asked the community to be like, hey guys, would you be interested in this? Like, do you think like maybe an iron worker might be interested in hearing the story of like a fisherwoman up in like Newfoundland? And then everyone was like, yeah, we do. And so we're like, okay, let's go for it. And so it's just a one-on-one interview show. It's again, a little bit of everything. I try to get as many people as possible. If anyone's listening and they want to come on the show, we'll go quickly to 74 again. Who am I kidding? It's probably going to be the same crazy number.
There is a thing called boundaries that maybe we need to talk to you about. I mean, I'm not great with them, but I have been told they exist.
Well, once you find them, please let me know, because
it'll trickle down.
It'll trickle. I love it. But that's the show really. And like, one cool thing that's been kind of evolving is this idea. We did a live one at a conference at CC West recently, and that was really cool. That was like very nerve-wracking, but it was a cool thing to be a live show. So
we've done live for a couple of years now, and they're a lot of work. We've gotten to the point where we're doing like live panels now. That's a lot. That's a lot. Sometimes
I can imagine. Like, congratulations on doing that though. Like that.
Well, you're always just trying to find ways to communicate the stories better. And even sometimes I have different guests, like a guest here and then a guest there. And I think those two personalities were just so amazing if I could get them in the same room. You know what I mean? Things like that, but how do you go about finding your guests? Like, you're 74 women that you brought on, or I don't know if they're all women or not, but so the 74 women you brought on, what's the directory? Like, women in work, Instagram,
It's honestly a little bit of, I'm kind of a go with the flow type of gal. So if like a opportunity presents, I usually will just say yes and like, let's go for it. Let's see where that goes. So that's been a lot recently, has just been like somebody has reached out, or like with you guys of like meeting somebody through LinkedIn or through an event and then being like, hey, do you want to work together? Or let's do something. So that's been the recent. But to start, I honestly was really, really lucky that working on that boat for so long, I met incredible women.
You had a pretty good repertoire already. Yeah.
I had a very like good base, and they're all very kind, and they're very nice friends.
And have cool jobs because you met
Yeah.
them on cool jobs, right?
Yeah.
So
Completely. Like, they're like women that casually will be like, and then I was in McMurdo in Antarctica, and you're like, holy, you're the coolest woman I've ever met in my life. So like, I had a good base, but that's where
Yeah.
I started, was honestly just bugging all my friends to be like, please come on. And then it just went from
took off,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it has been from Instagram as well. Anybody that like I think is really cool on the internet, I honestly just send them a DM, slide into their DM, and ask them to come
We
on
do that
this
a lot.
crazy
Yeah, we do
show.
that a lot. Yeah. Although
Yeah.
I have learned, and this is the patriarchy, and I, down with the patriarchy because it can burn. I usually get my female staff to go into people's DMs to try to bring them in, because a guy sliding into your DMs, even though I come with noble notions,
Yeah.
is automatically kind of a red flag. And I get that. I totally get that. And so it is, we're at about 50-50 for women to male guests. We were, I think, the first industrial podcast of a trans guest. And we support the LGBTQ. We do a whole Pride Month of guests for the episodes, and it's interesting because the patriarchy also handcuffs me as a man sometimes, right?
Oh, totally.
And not and then like I'm not like wah because
No,
it is what it is.
but it is true. Like,
But it is
affects
true.
everybody.
Yeah, it affects
completely.
everyone, right? And it's like, man, like if it's that hard for me to talk to a female guest to bring him in without looking like a creepy dude sliding into DMs, what's it like for a woman to try to get into a guy world? Like, it's a million trillion times layers of bull, right? Like,
Completely. And like, yeah, I think it's like layers of bull, but I think it's also like, we talk a lot about like identity, and like one thing that comes up a lot in terms of industrial is like a balance of femininity and masculinity. And I think almost all of us, it's very, very common. So when you first go into industrial spaces, you almost change your identity to try to be more stereotypical masculine. And you're like, you're walking around almost like a little kid at like theater camp, but you're like, I'm not
wearing
proving
dad's shirt.
yeah, like I'm not proving anybody like that. I'm like trying to like speak deeper, but like it's just this like almost like a fear-based mechanism, I think, of
defense
just trying to
mechanism,
be to try to like blend in with the surrounding and try not to be othered. And then I think you just kind of get to a point that you're like, no, I understand myself, and I can have this balance between femininity, masculinity. I can present authentically how I would like to present, but that takes time. So that aspect of patriarchy and like masculinity at site is something that we do talk about a lot, and something that comes up a lot is in terms of identity and in terms of presentation. It's
super interesting because I struggled with that, and it sounds weird because I'm a dude, but I'm a weird dude, right? Like, I'm a weird dude, and I grew up in a household where I had gay people around me that are in my family that I love very much. I grew up in a non-religious home, so my home was no religion, so I didn't have any of that stuff growing up. And my parents kind of just let me fly my freak flag however I wanted at all times of my life. And when I went into the industrial world, I had to tame back, right? Because I was coming in with painted nails and eyeliner and a red mohawk and tattoos and piercings, and everyone's like, yeah, like, you can't be like that. And I did the exact same thing. I did the like, I'm going to make fun of girls and talk about my truck and do the rah talk because that's the environment. And you get to a point where like, I'm done with this. You know what? This isn't me. Like, either you take me or you don't take me.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing on Friday? I'm going to the drag show. Like, that's what I'm doing. And the guys are all like, "Oh, you like drag racing?" I'm like, "Not that kind of drag.
Not that kind of drag."
Like,
but also good.
But also good. Like, I mean, so like, I mean, it's a thing where, because from my point of view, it's about being a good ally. Because I'm not a woman, and I'm not going to ever try to pretend like I can understand to the depths that the patriarchy can have on a woman's life and their ecosystem in society. But I can try to be a better ally. That is within my realm. I can do a few things. I can call out, right? I can call out, like, if anyone around me is being weird. Now, in today's world, that's not a go anymore. It's like, yo, stop
it. Yeah,
that's not allowed. Right,
that's
like,
so powerful, though. Like, that's incredible. Thank you for doing that. Like,
it makes you see it in their eye. The the bad guy's eyes. That if I've seen girls yell at a guy and they just like, I don't care, because they're deep in the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Where for me, I can be like, yo, stop. And then they pay attention to me, where it's like patriarchy versus patriarchy, like dun, 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 dun. And it's like, but it's but it's a thing where it's like all hands on deck, right? I got a very strong mom. She, we came to Canada as refugees. She's done an amazing job. She went back to university at 40 to get her social work. She's done all these amazing things. I got an amazing daughter. I got a great sister. So like for me, it seems like all these the patriarchy, as much as it hurts women, hurts men. We are excluding ourselves from beauty and understanding that is just inherently there, but you're choosing to blind yourself to it for some reason that I cannot fathom. Like, why would we? Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, like, continue.
If we had 50% welders on a job site, you know how much that would affect positively production, efficiency, workplace culture, probably domestic cultures, to be able to understand people better, like just on a social level, you know what I mean? I'm ranting now, but
no, it's a very good rant, because I think that that's the thing with like advocacy, and I think that's the thing sometimes that we also do talk about on the show a lot is, when do you bring men into the conversation? Because we created a space that's really for women and for women's storytelling and like women issues within culture and also joy, but it is really, really women focused. And you're like, yes, like the patriarchy does affect us. And like, I say that as a white woman, and it affects women of color to the net degree, right? Like, so there is levels to it, but like it does affect women more, but it also affects men. Like it affects every single person in the system. And like this issue of culture, if one person is being emotionally abused or yelled at, or if there's like really a lot of aggression that's like towards women staff, it is also probably likely happening to male staff. It is also probably problems of identity, like what you were talking about, being like, I put on this like bravado macho guy show. Like problems of identity will also affect both women and men. So this idea to be like, when should we bring in men into the conversation, and should we create a space for everybody? Because like, again, these issues are going to have effects to everybody. For us, we're just we're so tiny and we're just trying to focus just on us. But I couldn't agree more with this conversation of being like, that it affects men as well. Like all of these same issues in industrial settings affects everybody. It
is toxic. It can be corrected.
Completely. It is toxic and can be corrected. And I also think that we're missing so much joy, but also so much like productivity. The data always shows if you have higher diversity, you have higher productivity, you have a better output. I think that men are missing like a community setting. I think that's what women are very, very good at doing, is because I think we've had to, is create kind of community, especially when you're like one of two or one of four. I think
it matters more because it's harder to get.
Yes.
I mean, and this is coming for me from a very fresh learning experience I had last week. I was in Nashville for 4 days at the Association for Women in Metal Industries, an all-female, all-national, not-for-profit organization that is only for women, and it's like supports women in the metal industries at all tiers, right from like junior apprentices to CEOs. And this is a room of like some of the biggest hitters in industry, period, who happen to be women as well, right?
Yeah.
This is an environment for me as a male to come to this environment. We're a corporate sponsor. I brought our company in to sponsor them corporately. I brought my staff. I brought some women down from my staff to experience and learn as a learning place. And for me to learn, because in that environment, I'm the shut up guy, right? Like, if I go to say something, they're like, psst, and I'm like, yeah, right, okay. I get it. Not my space, right? I get it, right? Because you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to each other. And I'm just here to shut up and listen and learn, right? Coming out of that conference, I realized that even from a KPI level, because I do have that part of my brain,
you have to.
They had 2,300 members in all of the U.S., and they had 480 people at their conference. That's like a 1 in 5, 1 in 4 ratio of members to attendance. I told them I would die for that ratio. Because you know what, guys? Because we are the patriarchy. Any one of our associations has 40,000 members, 60,000 members, 100,000 members. But then you throw an event, how many show up?
Yeah.
100, maybe
Yeah.
80, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't care. We don't have to go. We don't need to feel that community.
Yeah.
We own the community. We don't need to find that connection. I can get it tomorrow
Anywhere.
at work.
Yeah.
I can get it at the football game. I can get it at the car dealership.
Yeah.
I can get it anywhere. But and that reduces my ratio of what's the word, of engagement.
Yeah.
But this female organization, their engagement is through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And that's you know where I'm going with it. So it's like it's
true.
amazing
Yeah.
how that community
Mhm.
is so strong, but kind of through necessity, right?
Completely. Like it comes from necessity. And I think it just because of necessity, because you're like dying to have community. Like you can always see it happen. If you go to work, if you like are at an industrial setting and there's two women, you will see that they will instantly gravitate to each other. Like
Yeah.
coffee, lunch, everything. To be like, even if it's a different department, different
Mhm.
different section, like it's instantly you need that community. You're like craving it. You're trying to find it everywhere. And I think because you've been trying to find community, you've also developed the skills of organization and community organization. So, for instance, I was at a construction event last night. I had never met anybody there. I think there was like 150 people. I was by myself going through. I instantly met like 50 people. And that's not because I'm like the best networker. I was like uncomfortable and being like, okay, this is like as you are when you're like one
Yeah.
person at a conference and you don't know any people. But all the other women in that area are all community organizers, and they are all working to try to
They
increase the
saw
amount of
you
women.
and they're like, "You're coming with us."
Completely.
Yeah.
Like I just got pulled into so many conversations because they'd
Mhm.
be like, that's like a new recruit for our organization. That's something we don't know yet.
Yeah,
We're going to
yeah.
get her in. We're going to get her contact information. We're going
Mhm.
to go for coffee. Like those skills kind of build up as well. But I do think that you're right that it comes from a necessity and like a love and a need for community. But
Yeah.
I think that that's really missing. And I would love for men to experience that as well, because I feel like they would love it. It's
Yeah,
fantastic to like
yeah.
meet new people. And
I think the cis white
Yeah.
male has it the worst, honestly, because as hard it is for the queer community, you can see when we see each other and they hang with each other, the love and safety they
Mhm.
bring to each other. I'm an immigrant from South America, political refugee.
Mm.
I have that connection when I run into someone who can speak Spanish. I'm in. Like we're friends.
Yeah.
You have no choice now because I get to speak in my mother tongue, and
Yeah.
and and it's rare, but when I do come across another political exile, we have a lot in common. We can
Yeah.
have that. I don't know, we can have the dark talk
Yeah.
that I can't have with just anyone, because only certain people that have shared certain experiences will understand
Yes.
that from another person.
Yeah.
So and that I think translates to what you're talking about too,
Yeah.
is I can talk about certain things to my friends, to my wife, to my to the people around me, but there's certain things that they won't get because they have zero context for, right?
Completely. And then because I have zero context for it, it doesn't have the same power. And it also feels very different when you're telling that story. It doesn't feel
Mhm.
nice to be vulnerable. Like it feels a little, and so that again, like goes back to when we were getting those questions from people outside of industry to be like, how terrible is it? That's why we were like, we really need to kind of control this narrative. And this needs to be an intercommunity. If we want to go there, great. But it needs to be done respectfully, I think, and
Yeah.
like done with integrity. And not to say that there was no integrity or malicious in those other people asking those questions. That's not true. Again, they come from good places, but they just don't
Mhm.
understand it. And I
Right.
think that lack of understanding dilutes the conversation. But yeah.
Yeah. Now, the other piece of this puzzle is your workwear line,
Yeah.
which I saw
Yeah.
that that's kind of a tangent. Like, I mean, I see the direct connection with your industry experience and your sister's industry
Mhm.
experience. I have witnessed firsthand in industry for 30 years, women struggle and even, danger of
Oh.
wearing improper safety equipment. And then as an instructor, we actually had an incident once where a woman got quite burned badly because of improper female fitting safety equipment. So I totally understand the need for it, But how the heck did you get in on that? Because
Yeah,
I never,
like,
I didn't hear any part of this seamstress, any part of this materials or fashion or clothing or. So what
yeah,
happened?
it's funny because I actually come from it from a different perspective because I've always been interested in clothes, but not a seamstress, cannot sew. My Graham, who Peggy Workwear is named after my 100-year-old grandmother, Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
She did all of my sewing because
Is
I got
Peggy
booted
short for
off.
Pegasus or?
I wish, honestly, I would try to call her that and she would disown me. Like I would not be allowed into her house so like I will never say that word in front of her ever again. Her name is Vivian and she is like a strong woman. Like you
Yeah.
will not call
100
her.
years old. She's doing something right, man.
Oh yeah, she is like she's got there from like stubbornness of just being like no one's going to tell me what to do. Like I am
Yeah.
but anyways, I tried to learn how to sew. She kicked me off like within 2 seconds. She was like, "No, no, no. This
You're
is not for
wrong.
you. This is wrong." But I've always loved clothes. I've always loved design, and my background actually way back in the day, before I decided to do sciences, I actually had a full ride to art school and to like graphic design and to
Okay.
painting.
Yeah.
And so my background has always been in art, really,
Okay.
is how I started. I did not go that route because I was in like grade 11 and I had a recruiter being like, drop out of high school. And my dad was like, I will
What
kill
are you
you.
talking about?
Like, you have to at least graduate high school. Again, trade school, university.
Yeah.
One or the two, but like there's no way here that you're dropping out. So but that's where like the love of design comes from an art background. And then the necessity. So like an obsession with clothes, a love of design. And then I think again is just slowly built of just like necessity and annoyance. The same way that Smoka was built of building this advocacy, of building this passion for like telling other people's stories and like having these conversations. Same with clothes. So it was like every single time I had a pair of Carhartts rip and like show my butt to like everybody
Yeah.
on the drill floor. I was like, I never want that to happen. Again, I'm like one of 4
Yeah.
women and I just showed everybody everything because I had a seam rip. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. I only have 2 pairs of pants because I'm in the middle of the ocean. Like, what am I going to do for the rest of the 60 days? Like,
Yeah.
this is
So glue.
so, like, it was ridiculous. So I was
Yeah.
like, so that was one aspect of it, of just like personal failure of clothes. Seeing all my friends and all the women around me, mending clothes and altering clothes, like in the middle of the chemistry lab, you'd have the one person that could sew that would like make everybody's pants a couple inches shorter and just like bring things in and make them actually fit. I had a couple scary instances in like confined spaces where I was like snagged and
Stuck in clothes. Yeah.
I'm already a little bit claustrophobic. Like I'm honestly not really comfortable going in confined spaces. I will if I have to, but like don't love it. And then I
Yeah.
got snagged and I was like, never again. This is terrible. Andrea had the same thing. She's been like up in fire many times. I have a couple of girlfriends that have lost thumbs from like
Yeah.
ice augers and gloves that are like poorly
Too
fitted.
long and poorly fitted.
Oh, like it was just all of these series of things. Again, it's like it's the same like build, right? But even for me, it was something that I thought was going to be a pipe dream. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
have this crazy idea. I don't have the skill set because I'm not a seamstress. So am I even crazy to have this idea? Like I really thought it was going to be a pipe dream. And then I think just what happened is it kind of was building and building and building and then being like, you can't not do it. You've been thinking about it now for 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do?
You put a
This is
lot
gonna
of
be
thought
like,
into this. You
yeah,
know?
this is going to be like 20 years of that. You're just going to think like woulda, shoulda, coulda, and you're not going to try it. Like you might as well try it. And it hit to a point too, as well as like working in geology, even though I love it, especially working maritime. It's fantastic when you're younger. But as I got older, I was like, well, I would eventually like to have my family. And like, I can't have a child and then be like, okay, see you later. I'm going to go for 2 months to sea. Like, you're good. You're on your own. Right. So, like, it also kind of was coming to the perfect timing of like personally, on a personal factor, of being like, it's time to be in one place. It's time to have a switch in career a little bit to be less field focused. You've had this crazy idea for years and years. Everything has been building. Why not try it out?
It's like good timing. Yeah.
The timing is now. Everything's kind of telling you that this is working right now. Try it out. And so I went back to school. I got a business degree because I was like, I know nothing about business.
Right.
So I went
Yeah.
back, got a business degree. While I was doing my business degree, I started writing the business plan, and I went through kind of those channels of starting the company. And then I started interviewing women, and that kind of data of interviewing everybody and being like, what do you need? What's working? What's not working? It solidified the idea of being like, okay, this is really necessary. And then from that, we designed like a from scratch collection. And what we did is again, like the thing with workwear, what doesn't work is like, it doesn't fit on thighs, hips, butts, and waist is like the like problem. And if it doesn't fit you, it's not going to function. And because
Yeah.
we do such technical and like labor intensive jobs, if it doesn't function, you're not going to be able to do your job, one, and you're also going to be doing your job extremely unsafely. And because
right.
of that, like, you're not going to feel like yourself. You're going to have that identity piece that we've talked about. That's going to be missing because you're going to really feel awkward and uncomfortable in your skin. You're also going to be at risk of safety incidents. Sorry. And then it doesn't work. It's going to fail. So what we did is we designed based on a size 12 to 14, which is different than industry. Usually people start at like a size 2 and they design their clothes. And we designed on a size 12, 14 and then scaled up and down from that. And we really just like workshopped it, and we like treated it like a science experiment. Honestly, it was just like me and my best friend high kicking in our in our protocols and like running up and down ladders to be like,
Yeah.
okay, like what's working? Like try to jump as fast as you can, try to do as many deep squats,
Get as low as you can without ripping. Yeah.
Try to put like as much tools into this, right? Like,
Mhm.
and then from that, we also took like a scientific perspective in terms of fabric. So our fabric is a huge win, and it is a custom blend of fabric. But what we did is we put in a nylon component because nylon is like
Stretchy.
10 times. No, it's not stretchy.
No?
It's so durable. It's like 10 times harder than cotton. So like, you know how Carhartt's like, and like heavy duck cotton, it feels really heavy when you're wearing it. You don't have that heaviness. It almost feels really light. Like you feel like you're wearing like a mid-weight pant.
Okay.
But it's like basically like Kevlar. Like it's crazy durable, and they can withstand almost everything because of that nylon component. So that was something that was really, really important to us, was like fit, function. And that was just like chaotic testing, which was like the highlight of my day, to be like, put as many rocks in a pocket and run around the block and see see what works. But and that was based on like data and based on interviews. And like, again, I just went really nerdy with it while I created this company. But then the like other aspect was like, okay, fit, function, durability with our custom fabric. And then we're really going to try to make our garments like breathable and comfortable, because that is what is important. We are working like shift work for like 14-hour days. We're not going to be wearing starchy pants or starchy overalls. Like, let's make something that looks good, feels good, and actually works. And so that was the crazy pipe dream of Peggy Workwear. We launched last March, so we have not been around for that long. And it's just been
like last March, like a year and a half ago, or last March, like 6 months ago?
6 months ago, like 6 months ago.
Okay,
like
all right.
It is like very, very new. But what's been really beautiful from that is it kind of was just a hit. Like people were like instantly like, these are the best pants ever. And like, I'm like, I didn't even pay you to say that. And they're like, yeah, we love the pants. And like, that was just something that was just so beautiful to see, and just like such a like a relief, and just like honestly, that makes it so worthwhile. Just being like, the community loves it, they're using it, it's like helping them through their day. If there's somebody out there that's like welding or that's like in potash mining that are wearing their clothes and they're actually helping them throughout their day, like that's all that we want. All that we want is just to try to like increase representation of women in trades, women in trades and STEM. And like from that, part of it's storytelling. A big part of it is also workwear. And it's something that like we haven't really talked yet. I don't know if I'm like ranting for a million miles, but
good.
but like another aspect of workwear is we kind of view it, one from a necessity and one from like a build, but like we also view it as a lever of inclusion, because at the end of the day, like when you get to a work site, this happened to me early in my career, when you get to a work site and they're like, you know what, we have all of these uniforms. The one that like was a huge, like probably honestly why I started the company was I was building an ice road up in like Northern Ontario, and we were in the like Mustang survival suits, and they were handing them out. And they're like, if you fall into the ice, don't worry, you're going to survive because you're wearing these like Mustang survival suits. They're like, we don't have anything for women. We only have men's large and extra large. My knees, I'm 5'5.5". Like, I am a petite woman. The knees of that went down to my ankles. Like, I literally had to grab like the crotch. Like, I had to pull up all of this fabric and waddle. And I looked my supervisor like dead in the eye, and I was like, if I fall into the lake, do you think I'm going to live? And they're like, no, not you. Everybody else is dying. You're definitely dead. There's no way. Like,
There's
that
no
suit
way.
is gonna like drag you
You're
to
a
the very
popsicle.
bottom.
Yeah.
Like that is the bottom of the lake for you. And I think that, like, even though it's funny, that feeling of being like, okay, you're comfortable protecting 98% of your staff, but the other 2%, like, we're not even supposed to be here. So you're like, yeah, I don't know how you guys
And
snuck
we're
in.
trying to make that a 50-50. What's going to happen then, right?
Yeah, like, you guys snuck in, like, you guys are kind of on your own, like, sort it out. And like, that's how it feels in terms of like, again, we're already struggling with like, hey, is this environment made for us? And then they're like, yeah, we also don't have any safety gear, and like, good luck out there on that ice road.
Yeah, and good
It
luck finding a
doesn't-
bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel very inclusive. So workwear at its like fundamental is part of increasing inclusion and just like
Yeah.
feeling like you belong. So
Now,
yeah.
in terms of like, because this is a welding show,
yeah,
and
sorry.
no, this is very much related to where you're going, because we have, and especially like, I mean, not just on this show, we've had other workwear companies on the show. They've interviewed, and you can go scope out their interviews if you want, learn something. But in my 30 years of welding, the one thing that always comes up, whether it's men or women, for when it comes to welding stuff, is it FR? So, and we have worked. I'm talking about the CWB Association, and since I've taken over, I have actively looked for a partner in workwear for women that is FRCSA approved clothing, and we have not been able to do that. Is that, I know your sister's a welder. Is that on the agenda? Have you already started that path? Because that seems to be an obstacle that really halts a lot of the producers.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely, again, my family would disown me, and I would not be allowed home if I was not thinking about welding gear, both Andrea. Like, there's absolutely no way. We started with non-FR, and we started just with one pant. Like, again, we've only been a company for 6 months, so we're so brand new, but that's something that's on top of mind of like our collection, of being like, okay, we have to make something for hot work. I think what is a limit, I think, and I can speak for myself here, and maybe not speak for others, but I think what can be daunting a little bit is from a regulatory point of view and from a certification point of view, and trying to navigate that as a small company, because I think that's when it just becomes a little bit more complicated on the supply chain, and a little bit more complicated.
A little more bureaucracy involved,
and testing, and also talking to the government, which is pretty slow and can be very slow. And if you're like a one person, but that's not an excuse. Like, we're going to get there. It's on the agenda. Again, my sister and like a co-founder is a red sail welder. We're not going to make clothes that she can't use, right? So we're going to eventually bring that up. But we started as general just because it was the easiest to do in terms of materials.
Well, and you got to figure out design too, and all those other pieces, right?
Completely. And if we can get it right on a general workwear, on a general pant, we're going to be able to get it right on an FR garment, right? Like, so if we have the design, if we have the pattern done correctly, we're going to be able to get there. It's just, I think what is hard in terms of going for a collection is talking to the government and making sure all of your materials are adequately tested and actually certified, right?
Yeah.
Because the other thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to produce a garment that fails certification. Or you never want to produce something that like all of a sudden you're like, this isn't actually FR.
Yeah.
And I know a couple, Andrea
and that's
has
a sliding
garments.
scale too, because FR is not FR forever. It's only FR the day you take it out of the package, right? Like,
completely. And like, Andrea has so many products that like are marketed as welding garments, and they'll catch on fire.
Yeah, they're not FR at all. Yeah.
They're not FR. And that's something that like as a company we would never stand for. So like if we're going to do it, we're going to do it like
for real.
Perfect. Like we're going to do it for real. So we're going to get there for sure. It's something that we're like aspiring to do. Again, I would be disowned, but it's just not at this moment.
What about gloves? Leather gloves. That's a big one for barrier for women in the steel industry. Is finding leather gauntlet style gloves that are, in the right sizes for women. On the radar, not on the radar, done already.
On the radar, but in the same batch, if like when we do FR, we'll do it the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we'll get one collection
Like
of
the
being like, okay,
welder's kit. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Like, so we're going to kind of do it in that type of collection status is how we're thinking of it, to be like, okay, let's do our general collection. Let's do our FR collection. Let's go from there. Right. But FR is like very, very close. Like it is our
Yeah.
next one.
Well, let me know
Yeah.
how we can help you. We
Okay.
know some people at CSA, so
Okay. I will take you up on that 1000%.
Well, and we've actually helped any company that's come to us to say what are the standards, what stuff, because
Yeah.
we are a part of that CSA process. The W178.2 is the code for FR, right? And so that information is public knowledge, but it's not easy to find federal stuff. Like
No.
even though it's public knowledge, you got to know where to look, right? So I mean, absolutely reach out, and we'd love
Thank
to get you
you.
there.
Okay. I appreciate that.
For we're getting close to the end of the show
Yeah.
here. Look at it, it's been an hour and a half. We're like rocking and rolling
We're just
here.
chatting. We're
Yeah.
yappers. Two
Yeah, we
yappers
are.
are
Yeah,
honestly have met up.
For what do you see for, first of all, for the future of your podcast? Where do you see it in a year from now? Is this going to be the forever, or is this going to be just a thing for a while? I mean, I'm struggling with that, and my podcast is doing well, it keeps growing, but I also have a company to run. So it's it's hard to find that balance because podcasts take time.
Yeah, they do. They do take time. I think
Mhm.
for me, I think it's just too important. Like I'm too like sentimental with it. Like
Mhm.
I think every single time that I'm like, okay, this is a lot of work, and like, is it having impact? Are we just having the same conversation? If I ever start to have just like, I think very normal self-doubt, then all of a sudden it's almost like
The
from
next
the
guest
universe, or
erases
like,
it.
yeah, I'll get like a comment from like, I think I got a comment on YouTube recently, and he was like, I'm like a 65-year-old man. I've never met like a female driller. This is the first person that I ever knew was a female driller. Thank you so much for like, and it's just that
You're like-
connection is instantly like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this forever. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll do this forever. Like for you, for watching it wherever you watched it, for you to like then take your time and write out a beautiful heartfelt message, and like that just means the world. So I think from that side, I think I'm always going to do this, because I think
Yeah.
every single time
You
I
got the
have a
bug
doubt, I
now?
get a
Yeah.
message, and I'm like, okay, well, see you later.
And how do people find your podcast?
We are kind of on everywhere, but Spotify and Apple is like the big ones. I think that's where most people. We are
Mhm.
also on YouTube. If you are a YouTube person, we are on YouTube. And we also have a website that makes it easy if you would like to listen to it from a website. I'm a big Spotify gal myself, so that's where I listen to it. But our website is www.smokopodcast.ca.
Smoko, SMOKO.
Yes, from like the Australian smoke break, which was what we were calling all of our smoke breaks up in the maritime industry. It's like, go and take
as
a
a
smoko.
smoker, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So,
It was, honestly. It's like, everyone go take a smoko, like
yeah.
speak some and just like hang out. And so that's
Perfect.
the idea.
Yeah,
of it,
Smokers
really.
Corner is where you make friends, man. Everyone knows
Yeah,
that.
it really is.
All right. Now the next piece of the puzzle, Peggy, the Peggy's Workwear. How do people find that? How do they do it? How does it work? Who do you want? Everybody?
Honestly, everybody, like, please,
Yeah.
like, give us a shout out. Am I allowed to do a very shameless plug?
Absolutely.
Is that allowed?
Plug
okay,
away.
because one thing, so we are available obviously on peggyworkwear.ca, www.peggyworkwear.ca. We are also on Instagram. We also have a hello at Peggy Workwear. So please drop us an email if you'd like to. My email is also armstrong@peggyworkwear.ca. So please also feel free to send an email my way. But we are also looking at if anybody would like to partner currently. That's where we're kind of at right now. So if anyone is in need of outfitting their crew, if you need bulk sales, if you have a retail location and you're like, oh my goodness, the women in my community would love to have access to workwear. That's kind of where we would love to go. And so as a shameless plug, if that's you on the other side of this, please feel free to send us a message. But from just checking us out, Instagram or our website is kind of the place to be.
Awesome. And so for all the
Yeah.
people that are following along, we know you're listening. We got people in big companies out there, shipyards, mining companies, so nuclear industries. There's a lot of companies that are a part of the show. Hey, reach
If
reach
you
out to
need,
Alexis
yeah, if you need gear, I'll get you gear.
for your women, Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, dudes can wear it too, I assume.
1000%.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you want to.
yeah.
Honestly, my partner and my dad, they rock our t-shirts like every
Yeah.
single day. Yeah.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
then the last piece is, because you are now entering into this world of entrepreneurialism and self,
Yeah.
your journey of self discovery. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Like, I mean, you've started a couple big projects now, but it's tough to stop creating once you become a creator.
I think and maybe this is just like total stubbornness and be like, I will not stop creating. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like, I'm gonna keep going. But I think where I'd like to see Peggy Workwear and see myself is like it would just be an honor to have more people, I think,
Hmm.
along the journey and we're really lucky right now that we have a couple of employees, which is absolutely fantastic and has been a
Hmm.
blessing and a surprise at this stage. But that's where I kind of see us going. It would be lovely to have a retail location. It would be lovely to honestly just expand. And I think just be open to
Hmm.
creating new things. And I think part of being a creator, I think one, I have some ideas, but I think my best ideas come from other people. It's like bringing more people onto the team and like
Right.
really expanding it and hearing what does a brand mean? What does our brand mean to somebody else? And then what can they bring to this kind of like new version of Peggy 2.0 and where can we expand it in maybe places that we don't even know yet, right? Like there might be an avenue or something, another big project or a collaboration or who knows, right? That might come up completely left field and be like, hey, do you want to do this? And be like, yeah, why not? Let's
Be
see.
open
Like,
to it.
yeah, as we
Yeah.
kind of grow and expand. And I think not that you lose your brand, but I think you just expand it to have more people
Hmm.
into it and to like what that means for more people. And that's where I'm really excited to go is just bring in more people and
Yeah. If your brand
yeah,
isn't built for growth, it's not gonna do well.
completely. Like it
Right.
has
Like, I mean,
to,
it's that's a component that should be there right
yeah.
from day one, right?
Yeah, it should really just change and evolve, and I think that's what I'm really excited for. I don't think I have um, like a stuck position of being like, that's what the evolution is going to look like. Who knows, right? But I just want the evolution to happen. I think that's what I'm excited about for the next
Well,
5 years.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I got one more question I'd like
Oh
to.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
one
Please.
more. Because
I'm
I'm
a
curious.
yapper. I
Yeah.
could be here all day.
In terms of your advocacy work,
Yeah.
aside from the businesses,
Mhm.
is there any things that you do or you're a part of or you'd like to let people know of in terms of, advocating for women in the industries?
Ooh,
Like you mentioned a couple things that you'd been to recently, like is there any agencies that perhaps aren't on our radar that are doing great work?
yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I'm going to shamelessly plug a bunch of other people because I think
Hmm.
that's the beauty of it. And I think what I would my advice is for if anybody else is like wants community and is in their area is I think just find one all you have to do is like find like one women in trades group and then go to who they're following. Go to who they're talking to. Who are they friends with? And then that will kind of explode your network. So that's an advice of somebody listening of where they want to do for some community. But the people that there's so many. I mean, VICA on the island, the Vancouver Island Construction Association. They're incredible. BCC WIT is a local one
Yeah,
as
they're
well.
fantastic.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
BC Trades Equity is also, I'm obsessed with them.
Hmm.
But Women on Site is a partner. We give a percentage of sales to Women
Yeah,
on Site.
we
They're
work with them
based,
too. Yeah.
yeah, they're incredible. They're based in Ontario, but they have chapters now, 11 of them across
Hmm.
Canada. OWA is also huge fans of OWA. Um, who else am I obsessed with? We were just down with Reinvented. That's a science one. They are, and if anyone's like a teaching position, they are the first like printed magazine for young girls in STEM.
Oh,
And
wow.
because And they do printed because for low income areas where they don't have access to internet and to computers, so they have like printed magazine. They're pretty incredible.
Sorry, I just thought of something that
Yeah.
I was at the that women's conference last week, and a kid's book on your it doesn't show up on the stupid thing, but it's Adriana tours a steel mill. It's a kid's book for touring a steel mill for children. I love this so much. I'm gonna reach out to the author, and I want to include this in my like national books that we sent out to industry, because that is the type of stuff that we need to get kids to have it on their radar.
And I will say, like, this is a plug for Reinvented, because what they do I think is so brilliant. Is one is the like printed magazine that's there, like they send that all over the world, but like mostly to schools and to organizations. But they also do a program called Princess with Power Tools. And that is where like all of these STEM women dress up as Disney princesses. And then obviously like little girls are like, oh my God, I want to go hang out with Ariel. And they're like, Ariel happens to have a nail gun. I'm going to learn how to use a nail gun today.
We're building a box.
Because like Ariel is using the nail gun. And so it's that like talking to kids. And then on that aspect, who I also love, Blythe, she's down in Texas. She is incredible. She's Girl with Grit. We're going to do a couple events in March, which I'm really excited about. She does workshops that teach young girls and young women trades programs and kind of like trade workshops. She does a bunch of different trades. She starts mostly, I think, in carpentry, but she kind of does a little bit of everything. And she holds these seminar workshops all across the United States. And so she is doing incredible work. Like, I think she just got a grant with the state of Texas and is doing a bunch of work down in Texas. But again, in like Colorado, she wants to come up to Canada as well. And so like fingers crossed that I would love to do something with her up here as well. But that's Girl with Grit, who's another incredible
When does she want to come up to Canada? We host a couple big conferences every year,
Honestly,
we're always looking for some talent.
Yeah. She's incredible. She's just like a wonderful person. She's so down to earth. What she's doing has so much impact. And I think there's been like hundreds of young girls that she's opened their minds up to being a woman in trades. Like it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing, entertaining, and eye-opening and educational hour and a half I've had with you, Alexis. I hope you've had as much fun on the show as I have.
This was like honestly the highlight of my day. Thank you so much. Like this was so much fun. It felt like, I can't believe it was like an hour and a half. It felt like nothing. Thank you for being so lovely. And I just love from the very beginning when you were like, I'm a nerd and I know exactly how geology and sedimentology works. I was like, oh, this is about to be the best part of my day. This is incredible. So thank you. This is a joy.
You bet. Well, thank you very much. And for all the people that have been following, we will be sharing the links. So anything that you send us and give us, we can put it up on the write-ups, and we can make sure that all of it gets sent out to our fan base, because we also are on all the podcast networks and on YouTube. So we can do some cross promotions there.
Awesome.
And if you ever need any guests for your show, not me, but I have great staff who are in the trades that are always looking. That I love them telling their stories too, because I get inspired by the people that work with me too, and how great they are. So thank you so much.
That would be an honor. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you. And it would be an honor to speak with them.
All right, perfect. Hopefully they don't badmouth me too much. Actually, Max is the worst boss I ever had. But,
we'll edit it out. Don't worry.
This interview was only 3 seconds long for some reason. Whatever.
Yeah, the rest of it was just F-bombs about some guy named Max. Like, who is that guy?
All right. Well, thank you. And for all the people that have been following and helping us, remember to check out our recently released 200th episode, in which my staff interview me, which is always pretty fun. And then we just got back from Nashville. We're going to be releasing those podcasts that we interviewed with the wonderful women down from the Association of Women in the Metal Industries. So the roadshow is going to be releasing those podcasts over the next couple months. So keep following, downloading, sharing, and commenting. And on our website, of course, you can always send us a DM or a message if you have any ideas, or you would like to hear or learn, or just ask us anything. Love to have you. And until then, take care. Until the next episode, I'll see you there.
We hope you enjoyed the show.